down. Quiet down. Quiet down. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, stop. Enough. It's really enough. Enough. Gary, read what I just wrote to you. I took you on my thing. Gary, I wish you would just look on your... Oh, if you guys wonder what's going on, I'm trying to do a live video with Gary. He set it up on his live stream, but is having trouble bringing me on board. So I set it up over here, hoping that he can jump on board. We're just trying to coordinate. So thank you so much for everybody's patience while we try to get this going. Yeah. Yes, come on board, Gary. Come on board. Come on board, please. Good. Can you please come on board? Gary, can you hear me? Come on board, man. Cheeky, stop. Stop! Enough. We are trying to figure out how to bring someone on camera, so I'm trying to get Gary to get over here and be on camera.
Can you set it up? I did, I clicked on it.
Okay, Gary, you can come on my thing and request being brought on camera. You just click on something. Any of the audience members can request being on camera.
I think it might only be available to us.
Thank you for your patience, anyone who's watching this live stream. Trying to get Gary on board. Well, if you guys wonder what's going on, I'm trying to do a live video with Gary. He set it up on his live stream, but is having trouble bringing me on board. So I set it up over here, hoping that he can jump on board. We're just trying to coordinate. So thank you so much for everybody's patience while we try to get this going.
Maybe.
Oh, Laura, that's so lovely to hear. That's wonderful. She says that she's saving up for some flying rainbow lasagna earrings. That is fantastic. Well, I'm having a shipment of fresh lasagna prints come to me from the print service, so they will be ready when you are. That is wonderful to hear. Gary, I'm trying to do a live video with Gary. and he's got it set up on his thing, but Facebook and technological gremlins are trying to prevent us from being able to do this. So we're having a Sunday fun day. We're trying to get things going here. See if we can work it out. Thank you for your patience, everyone. I know this is... Oh, well, we'll see. Gary is trying to get on via his phone. He's trying to log into this video through his phone. And then we'll see if we can get going. Hello, I see lovely people tuning in. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, yeah, Gary's doing Facebook on his phone to see if he can hop on over here. So that'll be really good. Oh, wonderful, Laura. You know something? You don't have to wait. In order to join the teaching sessions and the webinars, please hop on board right now. And you can do a payment program or belated contributions or whatever. Like I always tell people, like, don't wait until you have the money. If you have the interest and the desire to participate, just private message me and I will send you the login link and you can work out some kind of a payment later. Hello, Roxana. Great to see you. Yeah, I way more value people, you know, being a part of things and participating than whether they, you know, like being a cutthroat capitalist and whether they pay their bills and everything like that. So yeah, hop on board and you can worry about the money later. Thank you. Because we're already lasagnifying. We got to learn all about what's happening. Don't wait. Time to learn. There we go. Gary's on and he's doing a request. Wait, what do I do? What do I do? I say yes. Add. Dick. I will show you, Roxana. Roxana wants to know, where is Cheeky? Here is Cheeky. Hi, she's in the dog bed supervising the studio. I use this as my Cheeky voice. This is my, like, being cool, cheeky voice. I'm gonna give you a little hug and say hello. Thank you. Because there's loud noises outside and she's being really good and not making lots of noise right now. Thank you. Go girl. Let's see. Let's see if folks are on board.
Stuff on there.
See, I pressed yes. You should be on. Approve. 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 You should be approved. Good. You should be approved. I'm going to turn off this thing over here.
I think it's working, Aurora. Only through the phone, though.
Hello, Gary. How you doing?
Hey.
I feel like we have climbed a mountain, jumped over hurdles to be able to do this video together.
It's always a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't think that's by accident. Like, I don't know if everybody knows, when Gary and I try to do, like, a YouTube video, a radio thing, or whatever, getting the connection together. Sometimes you have to log out, log back in, do this. How come I can't find you? So, yes, major technological miracles have occurred, allowing us to do this at this moment. So thank you for everybody's patience while we got tuned in. And it was supposed to be, you know, Gary was going to do it on his profile and invite me on. It ended up working out that I could do it on mine and invite him on. So thank you. I'm happy that we're able to finally connect and have a conversation. Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Yeah. Are you on the computer or are you on the phone?
I'm on the tablet, which is iOS like the phone.
You're on the tablet, so we can't record it then, right?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look and see if there's any way for me to record on on here. Oh, that's a good question. I've never recorded on here.
Because that's the reason I wanted to use the computer, so I could just record it with QuickTime and upload it to YouTube as well.
Let me see if I can do it on my computer. Hold on, everyone. I'm going to be super rude. I'm going to go over here. You're going to look at the back of my head. Okay. I'm going to full screen on my desktop. Oh, I have to turn down the sound. Hold on.
Are you watching it, dude?
Quick down. Okay, cool, man. I think that I think I've got it set up properly. I've got this going on my computer, and I'm recording it in QuickTime. So I think that we will have a video record of this if all goes well.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Just celebrate with me. Yes! Major hurdles have been jumped over. Oh, my God.
The techno hurdles.
Yes, exactly. Oh, my goodness.
You have a thought, and then you press a button, and it immediately happens. Isn't that where technology is at?
Oh, well, it should just be like I wave the magic wand of my mind and it instantaneously happens. This whole idea I have to actually type things out is just completely horrible. But I don't want to have to, oh, hi, Kevin, it's an old friend from up in Humboldt. But I don't want to have to, like, live inside of a giant, radiation field in order to do that. Like, this is one of the things, this technology is coming up, that it is all of these machines that emit kind of like a radar field, and that it can sense our gestures and positions within that radar field, so we don't actually have to type on a keyboard or anything like that. But I think that it's not good to have to live in a radar field. That's not healthy.
No. Doesn't sound healthy.
No, I think everybody would just, in a common sense world, say, no, I don't want to have to live in a radar field just for the convenience of not having to press a button.
Right. It always comes at a price, right?
Yes.
Convenience comes at a price, and all the 5G stuff is not any different as well.
Yes, and I'm always telling people, like, we have far greater inner powers than any of the powers that technology can give to us. So instead of saying, like, oh, no, if I lost technology, I wouldn't be able to call my friends conveniently on the phone, you can understand if you lost technology, you would be able to call your friends conveniently by using your inner telepathy, which would be so much more easy to activate because you're not constantly being fried by all of this. I'm going to make horrible music now, everyone. Cover your ears. Horrible music that we're surrounded by all the time. So it's kind of a downer to talk about it. I don't know if we should talk about, like, more uplifting things, or if we should just be like, yeah, we're really in the shit. This is what's really going on.
I think most people kind of are having a sense that there are more shenanigans than we thought. That's like understatement, but I think a lot of people are kind of coming around a bit.
Yeah.
But
I'm totally agreeing with you.
I mean, we both know, as far as talking about these things, it's always touchy. But at the same time, like, if something's happening or if you're being subjected to something, you should talk about it as a population, right?
Good.
And you should be able to talk about
Good.
it without throwing poop at each other and trying to, like, scratch each other's eyes out and whatnot, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point that I would like to speak to. So one of the things that I've been thinking about in the last 24 hours especially is, how can we be allies to one another in this battle for personal freedom and planetary freedom and, moving in the right direction, when we all have very divergent opinions, very divergent, approaches? Like, no one overlaps 100%. No one is a 100%, like, I believe in this, and this. And they're like, yes, I believe in all those things too. Like, somebody might be a vegan, but they have the same political ideas that I do, but I eat bacon. And it's like, how can we find a common ground? Like, we both have the same agenda, yet we have different personal approaches. The heterosexuals and homosexuals, or people who believe in procreative sex, as opposed to people who believe in non-procreative sex. Like, how can we find, because I'm really finding this, there are people that share my political beliefs, or where I'd like to go in terms of political agenda, because I think many of us will admit, like, the government right now, not just our local government, domestic government, but international government, is very anti-human, anti-life. Like, there are so many programs that are going on that are about degradation of the environment, degradation of our personal experience here. Like, that's what the 5G and imposing this technology upon us is all about. That if you don't have the capacity in your local community to say, no, I don't want to put a 5G mast up on all of these residential streets, then that is oppressive. So we have a commonality. It's like, hey, nobody wants to have to live in the radioactive soup. And yet, some people are straight, and some people are gay, and some people are vegan, and some people eat bacon. How can we find a common ground in order to be allies against the evil beings that literally want to rape and kill and destroy you?
Yeah, that's it's just that's not an easy one, but I think even if you're thinking in terms of basic morality, and I've had this conversation with my dad before, even coming from sort of a regular religious background, which a lot of us have, that was the upbringing, there's like the black and white morality, which I think almost everybody just kind of gets. Like, you don't just go stabbing people just for funsy onesies, or you don't like imprison a being just because, or simply to use them without having any respect whatsoever for them. Like, those are kind of like very basic things. And then on the other side of that, the problem I see is that the sort of do you like a certain color versus another color, sweeping that same sort of thing into the black and white morality judgment spectrum, to me, is what we've had problems with. Like, what type of food is correct to eat or not correct to eat, and using the same sort of righteous indignation over whether someone's eating meat or not eating meat, as like, should we be killing people or not, or should, like what you were talking about, should we be aborting or not? The people, I think, a lot of times use the same morality like lens when they're arguing, and allow themselves to get caught up in the microaggression stuff and then fly off the hinge when you're talking about, do you like green better than blue, rather than should killing happen or should killing not happen.
Right.
So I don't know like what the easy solution is, aside from being able to control your emotions and not be reactive over every single topic that comes up, but you can't have a rational conversation if somebody's getting angry, and you never know what that anger is going to snowball into as well.
And can you work together? Can we as humans work together with people that might have a different viewpoint of us? Like, okay, we need to dig a ditch. Awesome, let's dig a ditch. It doesn't matter if you have a different viewpoint on sexuality, or if you have a different viewpoint on what our dietary habits should be. Like, we need to perform this very simple task together. And what I'm sensing in so many conversations, which mostly I don't have these conversations in person, mostly they are done online. So then there's also that question of, if you're not having a face-to-face, how are your words being interpreted and all of this? But all of these conversations where it does get very heated, and it feels like there is very little give and take in respecting other people's positions and viewpoints and sharing their ideas, in a respectful way. It seems like there is a minimal amount of respectful discourse. And also it feels to me like there's a lot of just rejection. Like, oh, you're different from me, I reject you. Go stand over there, don't stand near me. I can't, I can't stand to be near you. And it doesn't actually come from me. Like, I block very few people. I'll block someone if they say, like, F you to me. I will not take abuse. But I block very few people. But many people remove themselves from my presence just from me expressing what is truthful to me. So I encourage that. I have no problem with that. However, there's the question of, like, why is it so offensive for someone to simply speak their truth in your presence? And can we as humans work together with someone who speaks their truth?
Right. And I've noticed personally, just with relationships, I've observed that if people get onto the trend of being argumentative or sort of ego self-defense as like their mainstay, their main defense, what people will do is they'll get revenge, they'll get vendettas, they'll get resentments going on, and they will stop talking to somebody basically forever. Like, they will cut that person out as if they don't exist anymore, and they no longer exist, right? But then what happens with that is if everybody adopts that mentality, you have everybody cloistered in little isolation tanks, right? And there's no more communication whatsoever. And not only that, they're also having to battle those internal resentments which are poisoning them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So to somehow, and that's, you know, kind of a drastic example, but I know people who do that. And I'm sure everybody knows people who do that.
Yeah. I agree. It's a very unhealthy approach. Like, there can be differences in people's viewpoint, but that does not necessarily mean that there has to be no communication or no interaction. Unless that's like, if that's what somebody chooses, that's fine. But I, don't necessarily see it in that way. And it's interesting because there are many friends that I have from back east from like 5 years ago when I lived on the East Coast. And I have, very divergent viewpoints in them. And, I haven't seen them in a long time. So we have divergent viewpoints, but I still consider them friends through shared experience. And I have no conflict with the idea that, yes, I see the world this way and they see the world in a different way. Yeah, I think Belinda's making a good point. She says, a lot of people don't realize the matrix we are in and how deep the programming goes. When I try to speak to someone who I consider a friend and they cannot listen to me, I often see it as like they've got a type of program or a software program or like a veil in front of their face. And it's like, you're a very nice person. However, I see that you cannot see through this and speak to me. So fantastic, have a very nice day. Sometimes I have to be that way.
Right. And I could also see that as like like if things have gone very haywire in some society where it's like a purge situation where they're just at every slightest hint of provocation, it's like, let's kill that person. If it's like the worst possible thing, I could see implementation of some sort of programming to where the second you see any provocation, you're like, all right, shut down, not talking to you. You no longer exist. As sort of like an emergency protocol, but we need to, if that has, we need to somehow figure out how to be able to drop that emergency protocol and actually communicate with people.
I think you make an excellent point because we live in a dystopia right now that is akin to any like 1984 or Hunger Games. And there's a big thing about the slaves keeping each other in line. The slaves don't have to have taskmasters that come along and say, you've committed thought crime, you're not allowed to do that. The slaves keep each other in line. Where they say, hey, you're not allowed to think that, you're not allowed to be that, who do you think you are? And I now socially ostracize you. I put you in the social gulag because I need to show my masters that I'm being good. So I think that's what a lot of virtue signaling is saying, we're good, we're like the good citizens, big brother, don't look at us, we're not the troublemakers, those guys over there are the troublemakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like we have moved past the sort of like overt direct state interference, but we've implemented instead the self-policing, but at the same time the self-policing at that level that I was talking about, where nobody can handle microaggression, and the second a hint of aggression comes out, they can't say, oh, like I see someone getting ready to have a feisty debate with me and let's hash it out. They're like, we want to kill each other. So then they shut down because of that, and then no communication happens.
And you make a really good point about self-policing. I actually have been feeling that a lot. Before I press enter on something that I have written on the social media, I think, oh no, what are they going to say about this? What if they this? What if they this? What if they this? And that's really not my approach. I consider that level of consideration almost a form of social manipulation when you're like, well, if I say this, then they're going to do this, so I better say this. I am much more about like just sending out my truth and expressing myself without the consideration of like, how can I manipulate other people by showing exactly the right face? You know, like how on Instagram, some people only take a picture of themselves looking exactly right, because they're showing like a distorted view of their life. They're not showing like all the dirty laundry in the background. It's just like, like here's my wonderful life. I'm looking so great. So, I'm not manipulative negative in the aspects of self that I show. Like, I'm like, here's what I think, guys, and like, that's it, take it or leave it. And I'm not doing it to harm other people. Like, this is our right to have self-expression. When I start to consider, oh, well, wait, if I say blah blah blah, even something like that is relatively innocuous, like I eat bacon, I understand that that statement might magnetize to me all sorts of trollish or judgment comments about people who don't think that eating bacon is okay or acceptable for whatever reason. So I have to consider all of these things now, but I don't wish to. I wish to just be able to be like, I want to play my music, I want to say my thoughts, and this is it. And you are, of course, free to take my thoughts as you want to. Take them or leave them.
Right. It's also kind of ironic that we've descended into policing each other on microaggressions while the sort of external atrocities are still ramping themselves up. And the economic is, of course, deteriorating, and homelessness is increasing, and the middle class disappeared eons ago. Like, this whole thing, it's kind of silly that we're policing on that level when the other level is basically kind of just sailing along.
Thank you. I completely agree. Excellent point. Like, we are looking at each other's tiny flaws and using it as an excuse for how we cannot possibly work together. And meanwhile, there are real issues that affect us on an everyday, day-to-day, mundane level, like not mere abstract. So some of the things that you mentioned, like homelessness, that is a big part of just economy, the way that our economy is structured. And this affects all of us. And there's so many other incredibly unfair ways about our society is the way it's structured. I do agree that in some way this is like an open air prison. Not that I'm trying to make everybody feel like put your shoulders down, like there's no hope, but it's like, yes, like there's such a level of social control right now. There's very little freedom, and so I'm seeing there's a minimum amount of resources, and then all of the prisoners fight over the one potato that is available in the prison yard. And that's like that we can do something different instead. We could all band together and dig a tunnel out of here and not be in prison anymore. Where's my sculpture? Which is, more along the lines of using mental energy to move in a better direction. And I want to say, like, you don't have to have other people to use mental energy to move in a better direction. It can be a solo mission, but it's more fun to play music with other people. So I just want you to know, even if the whole rest of humanity were completely screwed up, you could still do the marathon on your own, but it's so better to like run with the club, run with friends.
It's definitely better, and I feel like the phase that we're in is being able to acknowledge the disparity between those two things, because, and I've asked this question many times, but I say, like, at what percentage of homelessness would it have to reach before the citizens, the people of the city, say something about it? Like, is it 50%? Is it 75%? Like, at what point, when the extinctions of animals, at what point will you start noticing or actually doing something about it? Because apparently we've exterminated like 70% of the biodiversity on the planet, or at least corporations have. That's a number I've heard. Even if it's not that number, that's ridiculous, right? Like, why is that not being paid much more attention to than, whatever the talking heads are trying to, like, incite people to talk about?
Yes. So Carrie makes a really interesting comment. They say, you do not want murderers and rapists digging holes at a prison lady. Because Carrie is interpreting what I said about we should stop them focusing on our differences, work together to get out of this prison. It is, a prison of consciousness, a prison of, limited viewpoint and limited freedoms and ability in, like, what we do with our energy bodies. I really disagree with the idea that everyone who is here in this limited circumstance should be there per force. Like, that is hugely flawed logic. Like, you're in prison, clearly you're there because you've done something wrong. Like, no, actually, I don't think that at all. And I think I'm a perfect example of that. I came into this limited situation in order to bring tools of freedom. So I'm at least one example. And I think that there are other beings who are here also who are consciousness waylaid on its journey, not necessarily the equivalent of murderers and rapists or low-value consciousnesses that deserve to be somehow sequestered away from the rest of the cosmos. That's big.
But
if they think that they're stuck on Earth because they're no good, like, I don't think you're no good. I think you're good.
Right.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's also understandable, though, what she's saying, because, like, everything here is geared towards low self-esteem, self-judgment, self-hating. Everything, all the religious structures, all of the political structures, all of the everything is geared toward making you feel like you're a murderer and you're a horrible person and you don't deserve this even, right? So
even food choices. People are told that they're bad because of their food choices.
Right. It's just judgment on literal. I mean, like, I'm very easygoing, and I generally don't care very much about what people are doing as far as choices. And even when I go on YouTube and talk, like, I'm very, very easygoing. But still, people manufacture things and they make up narratives about me, and I'm like, I'm not even in a narrative. I'm just simply here watching with my eyeballs, and I see like, some ridiculous things going on. So I'd like to talk about them, but people get pulled into that thing that says like. Not to mention, everyone's inserted with this original sin idea if they're in any of the major religions, and that's like a barb inside of your soul that's like poking you, you know?
That's what Teddy's comment down there says, original sin, for example, and I completely agree. I think that is one of the most profoundly, like, foundation level abuses that is perpetrated on humanity. The idea that just by coming here, just by existing, that there's some wrongness about you, that there's some inherent flaw. I do not agree with that at all. And I think that resonates on an internal level with people because they have a genetic degradation that makes them feel that way. It's like it's been programmed in, feel bad about yourself. And then when they hear that external, they're like, yep, that resonates. I'm bad, I'm a sinner inside. And I'm like, no, rearrange the Rubik's Cube of your DNA to edit that out because that level of self-deprecation and self-hatred is not supposed to be there.
Right.
Yes.
And the way the economics are put out as musical chairs, as a lot of people have referred to that model, where a piece is pulled out, a piece of the pie is artificially removed, so there's less and less to fight over. That helps that same internal model go along because everyone's struggling to survive, and as the years go by and the pie gets smaller. And it's also doing the double-speak Orwellian thing because it doesn't make any sense because they look out at technology and they see, oh, technology is just flying along and advancing and everything, but somehow, like, I can't barely survive anymore, even if I'm making as much as you could afford a nice house for your family and everything in the 60s or 70s on a very modest salary, and you can't do that now.
The way that the economy is structured right now, it's totally inverted, unfair, and it's intentionally done that way. The very same controllers that created the musical chair system, where they have not enough resources for everyone. Some kid's always going to be crying at the end of this game. They have intentionally, let's say, like, tightened the screws or clamped down or reduced the flow of energy. Like we're in the end game. So on the plus side, hey, you don't have to suffer that much longer. Like, we're at the end of the game. And on the downside, like, it gets very uncomfortable. Like, yes, 40 or 50 years ago, you could kind of survive with moderate comfort in this economy. There's no capacity to just coast along and survive in moderate comfort anymore. And that itself should be a motivation for everyone to make radical social change. Like, I really want everyone to know, you're not going to retire with your 401k. Like, you're not going to be like, oh, yes, I have my stock market earnings and I live in my comfortable. Like, that's not going to happen. Just want you to know, like, that is not what the controllers of humanity have lined up for you. They're like, no, we want to completely remove all of your savings, remove all of your pension, have you work at extremely low-paying jobs unto the moment of your death, and have you live in, like, tiny, boxy economy apartments with no privacy, ostensibly for efficiency. Like, they want completely reduced quality of life with no personal choice, no personal freedom, and minimal access to resources. And that's part of reducing human imagination and reducing human empowerment. And whenever I talk about these things, I always bring it back to doing something like using your mind, using your inner creativity. It does not cost money. So in order for us to get out of this disadvantaged situation, the solution does not mean, oh, I just got to work really, really hard and then I'll get money and become a millionaire and then I'll finally be free. It is about using your mind and your consciousness and your divine connection to be free. So that is very big. I'm like refocusing away from the idea that we have to, earn a lot of money, change the economy, all this thing. Oh man, can I just say a little bit of this? Nessara, Gesara. There's a lot of people, and I'm not making fun of them. They're like good-hearted people who believe in these, I think, frauds. The idea that there is some abundance fund that like waiting to be given good people. Like there's going to be an economic reset, and the good guys are going to ride in on white horses, and there's going to be magical bank accounts that everybody has plenty of money who needs to have it. And I think that is a very misguided expectation. It's been intently programmed in there to have everybody start being like, oh, any day now, those magical abundance funds will be available for us. And I'm like, no, like flying Rainbow Lasagne, pop into the next dimension. We can literally abrogate the necessity of having to have money, even though everybody keeps on keeping money as a fiction, but we can literally have a different experience of reality.
Yeah, you can have anything, but and like you said before, you can do it yourself. You can sort of be in your own power and do that by yourself. But it's more fun and more rewarding when you're actually interacting with people. Like even simple things like going and finding a plot of land and building like a house out of recycled materials. You can have like a place where you're interacting with the land for $10,000 or $20,000, and you don't have to do the 400,000 like in the hole more depth gauge thing. You don't have to do that, right? It's not a necessity.
Exactly. All of those choices to get 1 or 2 cars and have the monthly payments and have the mortgage to the bank and do payments like that. These are all old paradigm choices. And what I'm saying with all of this is I definitely don't see a cruel, harsh cosmos that is like hateful and is like bitch slapping everyone. Like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Like, I actually see a very loving cosmos. That's like, okay, like, let's say there's all of the people who are from the old paradigm who worked their whole lives and they're like, but I've got my pension all set up and now I want to have my 401k and blah, blah, blah. Like they would not be prepared. They're not ready to go into that level of mental expression. So maybe there's like a little pocket world that is set up for people that can only appreciate reality on that level. Maybe they can live in their own little world while other people can go into a world that is a lot more free and expansive, but does not include that level of, let's say, like there's comforting sustenance. Like, I know I will get my check on this day every month, and it's like limiting but comforting. It's like being a domesticated animal. You get your kibbles in your kibble bowl every day. You know how you're going to get, and you never have to go out and hunt. But maybe there are other beings who are ready to go out and hunt. And, when I say that, I mean use their imagination to create a more expansive reality and get resources from a different approach than stock market holdings or pensions.
Right. There's a tendency, I think, in a lot of people who haven't seen inside of themselves that they are creating their situation in some sense, at least. Not necessarily like I create everything by my imagination, but if you haven't seen yet what it actually is or the potential of it, then a lot of people are in the habit of using the sort of degraded language to imagine. Like they're using the word structure of the sort of that the musical chair system, and they're like, well, let's put the chairs back in, instead of saying no, the way it's built is so if you do put chairs back in, then such and so pops out of the wall and bonks you on the head or whatever. Like the beings that created this thing, they know they know the possibilities. So
yes,
trying to retool their own language, you got to go outside of their language.
You mentioned the beings that created this whole thing. Thank you so much. I think that is a heretofore unannounced character in this drama who is really affecting the drama a lot. Why do we have this economy set up as it is? Humans did not create it for ourselves. Who created it? Da, da, da. Overlords of humanity, overlords in quotes, or controllers, or the powers that were. This goes back to ancient Sumeria, ancient Babylonia. So, a long, long time ago, it was like, okay, you can hunt and gather everything that you need, and everything that you need is, there around, but you don't really have extra stored up for the future. And it was the invention of agriculture, which literally was considered to be a gift from the god, small g gods, right? Like extraterrestrial interlopers who said, oh, humans, we are going to give you this form of technology, which is basically, how do you domesticate crops through selective breeding? How do you grow more than enough of what you need? This is agriculture, so that you can then have extra stored up at the end of the season, and then that extra you can either use to eat next year, or you can use it for barter and trade. So what they did in I don't know if it's Sumeria, Babylonia, like very ancient times, they would create these little markers, like little clay like a little game piece to represent wheat or barley or something that you grew that was perishable. And they would take these little markers and stick them into like little purses, and then be like, okay, like I've got this many, whatever, bundles of wheat that I can share with you. That is where money originally came from. And the difference between money back then and money that we have now, money back then was tied to an actual resource, like a amount of grain, and grain is perishable. So it means that, let's say we have it stored up for 1 year, that grain is still viable. If I store it up for 20 years, no, it becomes moldy and inedible. So if you don't spend your grain, if you don't use your grain, then it becomes something that is, no longer viable. So Charles Eisenstein is an interesting thinker. He's a modern-day economist. It's not a total blanket endorsement of his work, but his work is worthy of looking into. He calls for a return to the gift economy, a sacred economy, and part of that includes money savings that degrade. The idea that you could take like $100 and put it in the bank, and 100 years later, it's still there. It's money that you've put in the bank, but it doesn't degrade. If that were barley or wheat and you stored it for 100 years, it would degrade. So this is the idea that there are huge stores of money in our economy presently, and without the motivation that they are going to decay or degrade, there is no motivation to use them. Because if your wheat is going to degrade, like, let's make some bread out of this. Let's do something with it, because otherwise it's a total loss. And there are some other cultures that looked at a similar type of sense of, you could call it jubilee or renewal, where at a certain point, like this one an indigenous culture that made extensive feathered blankets, and those were symbols of wealth. At a certain point, everybody burns all of their feathered blankets, and everybody starts from the beginning. So it's the sense that there is a more equal footing, and it is also more tied to actual resources, as opposed to what we currently experience, which is a type of economy that is not tied to reality. It's literally a fantasy, but a very destructive fantasy that does not actually serve the humans on this planet. Here comes Cheeky. She's coming over to say hi. Here, have a little Cheeky. Have a hug. Come here. Come on over. Ah, here's Cheeky right here, guys. There we go.
Hey, puppy. How old is she again?
She's about 5 at this point. I've had her for about 1.5 years, and when I got her, she was between 4 and 5. Say it again?
She's maybe like early middle age, like 40s for a human.
Yes, exactly. I think she's young, though, and I like to say, like, never ask a lady her age or her weight. So she's very, very spry.
Mm.
She's got a lot of good years left on the chassis.
Cheeky's a good one. Yeah.
She's.
I think since we're talking about the money system a little bit, like you said, we started out with agriculture, and that very concretely represented a store of actual wealth, right? And we've gone into more and more abstraction, to where now it represents the societal accepted value via numbers, and it's very far removed from something that you could go out and like place your hands on, right? And also, there's not tracing on a particular bill if you're selling drugs to get that, if it's blood money, whatever it is. There's no tie to that, and you're responsible in a sense if you're using money that was gained in nefarious ways or in hurtful ways. You're somewhat responsible for using that money because it has the thing attached to it, right?
Right.
But we don't have that. We removed the responsibility completely. So $1 is simply $1, and $1 is $1, and it has no other meaning beside it anymore.
Right. Oh, I think you made a really good point about dollar and the occult symbology that is on the actual dollar bill, and that even if we ourselves are not Satanists and we are not occultists and we do not want to participate in that level of personal and planetary degradation, just in order to survive in this time and place, we have to use money, and the money is connected to an occult or dark magic or satanic technology system. And when I say the word satanic, for anyone who is new, who doesn't know me and what the type of words that I use, I'm not a biblical literalist. I'm not actually talking about what the Satan that is described in the Bible. I'm talking about a space race a group of non-human extraterrestrial entities that uses technology and has literally oppressed humanity on this planet for, thousands of years, for all of recorded human history. And that is who set up the banking system. And they didn't set it up for our convenience, they set it up for their own convenience in order to focus wealth, refine and focus wealth, and then take it. They don't mean to leave the wealth here on this planet. Like, they want to take it with them and bring it other places. But they don't want gold. The whole idea that the Anunnaki or some space race came here to mine literal gold is erroneous. They came here to get life force energy. That is what you and I have. Is worth more than any kind of physical gold. It is worth more than, and that's why it's so disturbing when our lives and our humanity is devalued. Your body, your humanness, your babies, your sexuality, your life force energy is devalued. Like, that's what prostitution is. No offense, no judgment to anyone. But when someone sells their sexuality, they're selling something that's priceless. Like, imagine you have a priceless Fabergé egg encrusted with jewels, and someone's like, "Oh, I'll give you $5 for that." Like, that is not a good trade at all. And that is what happens in prostitution, or this barter for sex. That it is the degradation of the value of life force itself. And that is, that's what they want. They want that sexuality, that life force. They don't want physical gold at all.
Right. I had a thought. I forgot what it was, though. It was related.
I'm sorry that I ran on.
No. I think it will come back.
Okay. And there's some loud lawn work that is going on outside my backyard, so I'm sorry if you can hear it. It sounds like a mower or something.
It's not super loud.
Good. Because I can close that door if I need to.
What it was Rockefeller, one of the Rockefellers, like, he wrote a whole thing, right? He wrote, like, a memoir. John or something, one of the Rockefellers. And he said in there, like, with the whole transition into the central bank system.
Right.
He's been there, like, if the American people knew what we did, then there would be a revolt within the day, right? And he said it himself. And the fact that, like, that's out there in public knowledge, and just most people don't even know that he said that, or that basically whoever is responsible for creating the system has said plainly what they're doing, not to mention all of the references and everything in books and literature and movies. It's all there in plain sight. It's almost like a bit of a laughing in your face type of thing, because they're aware as anybody that it's not just an easy thing to say, hey, there's a slight issue going on here, and maybe we should look at it or talk about it. It's a bit of a taunting, I would say.
Yes, I completely agree. There is a great deal of condescension towards their victims or experiencers or whatever, and they are definitely laughing, like Nelson, ha ha, laughing at you. And Mary Kate says, how do we stop our enslavement? How do we break free? So I always say this, like, I'm not going to talk in excruciating detail about the challenges or how crappy it is or how bad our suffering is without bringing forth solutions. So one solution is something like flying Rainbow Lasagne, which is a genetic restructuring. Basically, the solution is you use your consciousness and your willpower and your body and energy structure in order to supersede these levels of control. So Gary and I have talked about this science fiction story. It's from Kurt Vonnegut. It's called Harrison Bergeron. And the story includes characters who have, like, amazing powers, but in their society, they're suppressed. They're made so that they're not allowed to be as amazing as they are. Like, they have to wear sandbags or cement so that they can't walk properly, and they have implants or visors on them so they can't see properly. And I'm not ruining the story for you if I tell you this. At the end of the short story, Harrison Bergeron, he's the hero, tears off all of his impediments. He takes off all of the weights and all the sandbags and all the things and the eyeballs and the earplugs and everything, and he becomes free. He supersedes. This is what I'm talking about with flying Rainbow Lasagne, that we have all of these control systems here. There's thought structures that are control systems. The economy and money is a control structure. And I make this very clear, like, I'm here as a human in that control structure. I didn't just stay in an abstract form, like, oh, I'm a nice, comfortable abstraction, and I don't have to worry about my bills, and I don't have to worry about going to the grocery store, and my life is so easy, but oh, those poor humans, I really pity them on Earth. No, I actually came here through the flying Rainbow Lasagne into a body, and I have to deal with all the same SHIT that everyone else does. And that's like saying, hey, like, I'm in it with everyone, we have a common goal. This is what I was talking about, Harry, at the beginning of this broadcast. You know, I'm not a human. I'm in a human body. I identify with humans. I'm here as part of humanity and solidarity. I'm like from somewhere else. We have a common goal, though. We're not exactly the same people. We don't have to be the same people. We have a common goal, which is how to be free, how to no longer be enslaved, how to no longer be enslaved by money. So yes, I have to live within this socioeconomic matrix, and that means I have to like make stuff and sell it for money, do stuff for money. And these are the challenges that we're all facing. And we can restructure, we can change the way that this whole thing is set up. So how do we do this? The first thing is recognizing what is going on, being educated. So I'm happy to say in the past 17 years that I've been here on this planet, I've seen a lot of humanity being educated. Now, if you say something like the Babylonian banking system, that is recognized of what people will know what you're talking about, or the idea that your birth certificate is commodified, that your birth is a commodity, and that your life force energy and your existence as a human is a marker, like, you know, money for some larger world economy. This is recognized now. So it's been a huge uphill battle to see, like, what kind of a trap are we even in? And then the solution is a purely consciousness-based solution. It is not based in materialism. So you don't have to build a machine. The solution is not, oh, build a metal rocket ship and fly somewhere else. The solution is not, oh, build whatever, like a thing, a magical ray gun, and we will shoot each other. Like, that is not the solution. The solution is transformation on an inner level, using your divine connection. And when I say that, I'm not talking about God of the Bible. I'm talking about the sun, consciousness, the stellar network, photons, literal light. You eat light and you be light and you connect with that pure consciousness, and and it doesn't involve any level of religiosity either. I think we're moving beyond religiosity. Oh, Teddy's making a very funny comment. Let me read this. Teddy says, oh, Aurora, what were you thinking? You should have stayed where you were free, but we're so glad you decided to come. Thank you for that. Let me say this. I really made a spontaneous choice when I came here as Aurora, because if you guys are all enslaved, if there's not freedom here, it means I'm not really free, because our lives on a cosmic level, on the level of time, are totally intertwined. If you guys are all enslaved, it's like there are vital ingredients in the recipe that aren't available for everyone else. Everybody needs to be totally free everywhere in order for the big recipe, the totality, to be healthy and vital. So I could not sit comfortably on an interdimensional cloud and just watch all the suffering and lack of freedom. That literally would mean that I would be less free. So I had to intervene and do something.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's almost like the idea of if you create an interactive VR video game where you can put your consciousness into, right, and remove yourself from this world, and then inside of that, the beings are sort of half there, but they're torturing each other somehow.
Yes.
And in there, they're like, oh, you know, it's fine. It's a video game. It's not affecting the outside world at all. Blah blah blah. It's like that sort of mentality to where it is going to affect the outside world somehow. Everything affects everything.
Totally, because it's microcosm and macrocosm. So what happens on the little tiny inner levels radiates outward to the other ones. The show Rick and Morty, there's a video game in there called The Life of Ray. You live as a guy named Ray. It's so immersive that you even forget who you were. And this guy, he's like a carpet salesman. He lives a very mundane life, but you live his life. And then at the end of the video game, you come out of there and take up the VR headset, and you're like, oh, I even forgot that I was just playing a video game. Yes, that is a good analogy. It's not a total blanket endorsement of all Rick and Morty episodes, but it's a good, funny show for that. And also, it does not mean that the suffering isn't real. You know, we live in this world that could be considered partially a simulation, but and I had to come to terms with this when I came into this body. I'm like, okay, this world is not completely real reality. There's a lot of illusion here. However, if I can feel pain, like if I can like hurt my skin, if I can, you know, be damaged, I have to take it as if it is a reality. The suffering here is real. That show Westworld is another good example of this. In that show, there's like a playground, a fantasy land that is created, that's populated by both embodied humans like you and me, and also synthetic replicant clones. And the clones are often tortured and raped and killed in horrible ways. And the humans justify this by saying, it's just a simulation, they're just synthetic replicants, it's not real. But the suffering is real, and the consciousness is real. So that level of justification, or those excuses, are what is made by the controllers, overlords of humanity. Sorry, there's a truck outside. But they say, oh, the suffering isn't real. It's only temporal. It's only in time. It's not eternal. And it doesn't really matter what we do on this level. It does matter. It completely matters. And the fact that they feel that the need to justify it shows you that they know it's wrong inside. You don't make up excuses if you're doing something perfectly right. You make up excuses when you're doing something that you know is wrong. So they know that it is wrong.
Right. And just the idea that there can be a sort of hiding of things, like underground bunkers, or what happens in dark corners, like the idea, there's the idea and somehow alive and exist and somehow escape notice by the whole or the totality. Like some beings, I think, have this idea. And as far as I know, that's impossible. Like the game can be played for quite a long time until some resolution is happening. But at the very base root level, everything is known. And there are resolutions to literally every problem.
I agree. I think they're not fooling anyone. Like from a fifth dimensional and higher viewpoint, you're not hiding anything. So it's just kind of laughable. It's only for people that have not, or beings that are not perceptive on that level, that they can't see all the levels of reality, but then they can be fooled. I just have to speak to this one comment down here. Michael Haskell says, whose body have you stolen? Wow, thank you for giving me an opportunity to say this in this broadcast. Yeah, when I first came here, I faced a lot of that scrutiny and skepticism. People accusing me of being some kind of a body snatcher, as if I came here and took somebody else's body without permission in an inappropriate way. And I've had to understand that in this world, like first of all, I'm speaking on a traumatized planet through this cultural filter of abuse. And there are beings who have come here as demonic possessors, not as, benevolent walk-ins. So I understand the filter of interpretation through which you are so rudely accusing me of being a body snatcher, and please allow me to reassure you that no, I am not a body snatcher, that I am in fact here according to cosmic law and on a bridge of love. So in order for me to be here in this body, I created this flying rainbow lasagne that does not contravene or go against any of the other cosmic laws, including cosmic laws about freedom, about how I came into this body. It was not that I stole it from someone else, where they're like, I want to be alive. No, I want to be alive. Well, I'm taking your... No, it's not like that at all, even though evil beings do stuff like that. No, it's completely the opposite, where this body and the person who used to live in this body was literally being murdered by extraterrestrials who use technology that I define as satanic. They are a satanic-based race, and they use consciousness in order to distort the time field. And me coming into this body was a rectification and a healing. This body was not supposed to die. This life was not supposed to end. So me being here, this is actually an upliftment of the time field, not an insult to the time field. So thank you very much for your comment. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that here.
Do you get that a lot?
From jerks.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's interesting when people make comments like that, because they are not, while they're saying that, thinking, this is a great way to ask this being the circumstances of how she came into this body, if that's what she's saying. They're like, like, I'm gonna, like, yell and scream and throw things and stuff. So if you respond without the same level of emotion that they're coming with, then what's there to do about it,
Yeah. I've been here for 17 years, and I've exhibited in every single way my goodness, my authenticity, that I'm coming from a place of love, that my value system is one of freedom. I feel like I do not have anything to prove. Like, it is totally evident. Like, I feel like you can tell by looking at my face who and what I am. So if you cannot tell that, then I don't think we have a lot to be able to talk about, and good luck on your journeys wherever you choose to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Belinda makes a lovely point in her comment. Thank you very much, Belinda.
I think, like, as a whole, at least if you stay in the sort of thought form that, you know, most of us grew up in, which is 3D and you live, you die, like, we don't know anything outside of that. Aliens don't exist. We're the only planet that supports life. You know, like this sort of thing that everybody grows up with.
Right.
We're used to the whole, like, you know, conspiracy theorist thing to where you can categorize anybody who says anything outside of that one-dimensional viewpoint as a conspiracy theorist, right? To be able to come out of that without being lumped into that group and labeled insane and thrown into the loony bin, that's, you know, it's not easy to talk about stuff without automatically being lumped into that group.
Definitely. There's a lot of disrespect I found in this culture of people that have information that comes from like a higher dimensional viewpoint, that they are often misinterpreted as insane or socially inappropriate. So, and definitely not seen as like leaders, visionary leaders of humanity. Often they are swept to the side and disrespected. So I'm understanding completely what you're talking about. And yeah, that is the challenge of like being able to see and understand things that many other people, like being tone deaf, that you are a good musician and you're playing good music and the other people are tone deaf and they cannot tell that it is good music. So, you know, what I do is I jam with other good musicians. If people are tone deaf, if they cannot even listen to music, then it's like, that's fine. Do all of this is optional, not mandatory. Like, that's what I really would like to say in terms of personal development and trajectory of consciousness, like where you go and what you are. There's no obligation. There's no, like, you have to be this, you must be this, you must go in this direction. It is all, that's what freedom is. Real cosmic universal freedom is about personal choice of consciousness, that you can choose who and what you are. You can make your own choices, like if you want to be a demon, if you want to be an angel, if you want to be anything in between, and then you go in the direction you want to go. I literally do not try to lasso, like a cowgirl, like I'm going to lasso someone like a cow and I'm going to like pull you in the opposite direction. No, I don't do that at all. That is not my job. Everybody gets to choose which direction they go in. What I might do is like offer you ideas. Here's a bunch of ideas. Take it or leave it. Are you interested? Like that's totally fine. But no, it's not my job to make you go in any particular direction.
Right. You're not. Right. You're not starting a religion.
No, in fact, I really feel that we are at this era now that is the end of religiosity. I really feel that religiosity, oh, this is good too, I wanted to talk about this. So religious worship and also the idea of an external system of ethics or morals or an external control system. We're at the end of that era because as each person awakens their own inner vision, you can literally see what is truthful. You can literally see and sense very clearly, you know, you could say right from wrong or where you want to go in terms of navigating reality. So up until this point, if everybody is blind, then it's like, follow these 613 commandments and then you will do the right thing in life. And that's what people say, oh, never eat shellfish, never do this, always do this. Like that was the lessons from 5,000 years ago, always and never to guide humanity when humans are blind. You're not going to be blind anymore. The reason why religions were created as like the rule book, the handbook for when you're blind. And when you actually can see, then you can have a completely different experience that is not about blindly following religious rules, but is instead being like a rapport, like a lover, where you say, I do this, how does my lover respond? I do this, how does my lover respond? And your lover is the cosmos.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like flowing with your environment, you know, like the way I am now, as opposed to sort of how I was earlier, is that I don't see the external as something different anymore. Like the trees, the people outside, and every single external thing, whether it be a human or a plant or a dog or whatever, if you come to that without the expectation thing going on, without the social norms going on, without the religious commandments going on, without the fear thing going on, then I find that most people are just like simple. Like, for instance, we had her car got smacked into like a couple days ago, right?
I saw that picture on the computer.
Yeah, someone just came, smashed it, ran away. But what happened after that was kind of amazing, because we sat out with the car and we were just, like waiting for the police to come, but they took forever. They took like 2 hours or something like that. But we had probably 10 or 15 neighbors / random people walk by, and almost all of them were just stopping and chatting, and it was very much like organic, as it was what anybody would naturally do in that situation. And basically everyone was laughing at the guy for leaving his license plate, because he did a hit and run and like left his bumper at the. So everybody was like laughing their asses off, and everyone here is kind of poor, and half of them are missing teeth, or there's like, this is a poor neighborhood, but still, like, they interacted with us, and it was a good thing. Like, we met a lot of people that we wouldn't have met.
Yes.
But still, like, if you have all these internal blocks, then you might be scared of people walking by. You might be only thinking, oh man, my car is broken, so now how am I going to survive? But you don't have to do that. You don't have to carry that mentality, even when bad things happen.
I completely agree. And I do think that I'm not a total proponent of law of attraction, but I do think that our expectations when we have a human interaction has a lot to do with how that interaction goes. So if you expect, oh, like I will meet people who are friendly and amenable to me or helpful to me in some way, you're much more likely to have those levels of interaction than if you meet the world with, total skepticism and, fear, and then you will largely have that confirmed to you. And I'm fine. And what I'm trying to say in this whole conversation is, how can we find that common ground? We're like, let's say we're like fish swimming around in an aquarium, various different species, and everybody's got their own agenda. And the aquarium has like someone is dripping little drops of poison into the aquarium every day, and we're all ingesting it, and it's not okay for any of us. How can we as fish, like, what can we do different? How can we change this? What can we do? So a big thing is like mutual respect in conversations. I am different than all of the humans here on this planet, but I don't come here and say, I'm different than you. We have no common ground. I hate you all. Like, you're poopy heads. No, I say, we are all different and unique. How can we find the common ground? Like, you all look like weird fish to me. Yes. What can we do to communicate and work together to stop them from dropping poison into our atmosphere drip by drip every freaking day? Yes. I'm looking at some of the comments down here. And I think there's some interesting comments about seeing ships or seeing otherworldly visitors. And I think that that's a good, topic to delve into also, because just as there's this religiosity from the previous era, the idea of wanting a bearded sky god. You have a good beard, Gary. You could be bearded sky god. We'll take your picture. Be like, Gary is here to save us. He has a beard. Like, there's something about that image that is very, like, programmed into humanity. And, there's this sense that the bearded sky god will save us, or maybe the Anunnaki, or maybe, benevolent space brethren or anything like that. And I'm always trying to say, like, we have this inner capacity. Not that you have to bootstrap yourself, but, like, we awaken, we become superheroes. We become amazingly, empowered Olympians that can save this and transform this world.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you view it as like play, like say life is a play, and we're all like actors on the stage. Like, just imagine if somebody play where every single actor thought that they were the worst being that ever lived and they didn't deserve to live. Right? Like, what kind of play would that be if literally everyone was afraid to move and afraid to say anything and afraid to walk and afraid to blink and all of that? Like, what kind of a play would that be? Like, who would want to even watch that?
I think someone would want to watch that who likes seeing people very uncomfortable. Like, oh, they're all in straitjackets. It's going to be a great show. Think about that show Survivor. I don't watch any of these shows, but I'm aware of them. That show is entertainment for people who like to see people in discomfort. They're like, look, that guy got 1 grain of rice. He's starving. This is so entertaining. Like, there are some really effed up, interdimensional beings that they think the Earth show of musical chairs is really entertaining.
I'm sure. So what else is going on? Oh, I heard that, and I could be off, but I heard that Trump legalized hemp. Is that true or no?
Yes, the farm bill that was signed a couple of weeks ago does indeed legalize industrial hemp. And at the very same time, the FDA reclassified or changed its approach to CBD, which was able to be legally sold across state lines in the United States. Now they are saying that CBD has to be all controlled by the FDA and investigated by the FDA. So I, of course, I use CBD medicine as my own medicine instead of pharmaceutical, anti-seizure medication. I'm a huge proponent for CBD. And so some people were against the farm bill because they thought that this is what was happening. Then Trump did sign more subsequent legislation, like making CBD more available. But I see the hemp transformation as a hugely positive thing. Here are all the different levels of why legalizing industrial hemp is very good. The plant itself creates a beneficial energy field when it is growing. It's different than corn, and it's different than genetically modified corn. So in our country right now, we've got acres and acres, hundreds of miles of genetically modified monocrop corn that emits a genetic sound that's like this. It's not good music. And cannabis emits a beautiful sound. It is a benevolent energy field. Dr. Emoto, he's famous from the water experiment, did very good work on this. So hemp not only mitigates or phytoremediates soil contaminants, drawing them up from the roots and cleaning out the soil, but then you cannot eat that hemp. You got to do a couple of generations of hemp to clean out the soil, and then you can eat effectively what you grow. So the first couple of things should be used for fibers, not for seeds or whatever. But the mitigation of radiation is part of it. Creating a beneficial energy field is part of it, and it will reduce our reliance on petrochemicals. And so much of the imbalance of our socioeconomic and foreign policies have been due to reliance upon petrochemicals. So if you are truly a person that says, no, I want to no longer have the Middle East and oil-rich nations controlling the United States, like the idea that they've got you over a barrel, that they are controlling you because you need their resource. You can literally move away from petrochemicals and move towards biodiesel and other things like that. Hempcrete as a fireproof, effective building tool long-term, which is also carbon sequestration. So we can talk about the global warming, quote-unquote, globalist agenda to oppress humanity by labeling carbon a poison. Carbon is not a poison. We have to get away from this whole indoctrination. And it begins in the ivory tower. It begins in the collegiate system, the system of universities, which are funded by globalists. So the universities teach this dogma that says it's like a type of religiosity. There's something wrong with carbon. Carbon is a poison. There is not carbon dioxide or carbon itself is not poisonous at all. It is what plants breathe in to balance our atmosphere by growing more plants and then sequestering that carbon. And this is what hempcrete does. The plants grow quickly. We could stop chopping down trees in order for things like fiber, and then we would be able to use all these plants, turn the plants into building materials that are long-lasting, and the carbon is sequestered in that way. So just be aware that any of these things, the Green New Deal, which is really environmental totalitarianism, wearing the sheep's clothing of environmentalism. It's like, I'm really caring about the environment. No, what I really want to do is tax you completely into submission. So hemp on every level, to transform our economy, and also thing that you can grow as an individual that you don't need a particular license to grow. Like, this is big in levels of personal freedom. You should not have to have some kind of a special license to grow tomatoes or cucumbers. If you want to grow genetically modified stuff and dump a ton of glyphosate on it, that you should have a special permit to be able to do. So I am blocking Michael Haskell. He's been blocked. That guy's only here. Yeah, he's only here as a disruptor and is not here in order to add to the conversation. Snaps, snaps, snaps. Blocking, blocking, blocking. I have literally zero patience for that. He can go in whatever direction he wants to, but why come here and make comments like that or make disruptive comments? And this is another big part of it. Like, consciousness can go in whatever direction it wants to go. Don't try to like mess with another person's trajectory. If you're trying, it's like if you're trying to lose weight and someone else is like, here's chocolate cake, eat it, eat it, eat it. It's like, no, I actually don't want to eat that. I want something much better for my body. So I actually want to have better, more healthier, uplifting conversations than what Mr. Haskell is interested in having. So that's why I blocked him. Like, if you want to jam with the band, be a part of the band. If you want to fart into your instrument, please don't be here.
Put him in the timeout corner. Isn't carbon like one of the most prolific structures in this universe? Aren't we all carbon-based life forms?
Yeah, it's the basic building block, or like the central hub of many of the molecular structures that make up our body.
How can you possibly carbon is poisonous? You would be saying that every single living being is poisonous.
It's kind of like saying it's an agenda that comes from an alien invader that would tell you that your own body is poisonous and you don't deserve to live on this planet, and if you want to live on this planet you have to pay an effing tax. That is what the carbon agenda is about, and you can tell I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about the carbon agenda, but that's just because I never watched news.
So the carbon agenda, this is like what the Paris Accord was all about. So this is why it is a good thing that the United States pulled out of the Paris Accord. It's a ruse to say, oh, we care about the environment so much that we want to stop putting carbon up into the atmosphere. They're not caring about the environment. They're coming up with a new excuse to tax the individual. So they are not saying to large producers of carbon, like power plant and factories, oh, you guys got to stop producing so much pollution. They're saying to individuals with fireplaces, this is happening in Canada. Like, there are a lot of people up there heat with wood. They're saying, no, your individual fireplace makes too much smoke, and now we want you to only have electric heat. Like, that is criminal. That is horrible. And all of that is an agenda to disempower the individual. That you cannot live rurally, that you cannot live independently, like living off the grid, that you cannot heat with a resource that you have access to. Like, if you heat with wood, chop down a tree if you are cold, all right? If you heat with electricity, you have to pay PG&E, or you have to pay whatever is the electrical concern in order to get your heat. That's really, really different. So all of this is part of the agenda to completely control. It's a totalitarian agenda. That's it, basically.
Exciting stuff.
I know, it's dark stuff, and we talk about this a lot, and it can be like, oh, like my shoulders are going down, like, oh my god, like, can we talk about something that makes my shoulders go up a little bit? Like, in my daily day-to-day, I want you guys to know, like, I don't stand around, like, thinking while I'm brushing my teeth, like, the carbon agenda, this is so bad. No, like, I am mostly, in my mind, very joyous, and I do a lot of painting and artwork and uplift. When I talk about, when I talk with you, and I'm talking about the things that we're passionate about, whenever we have these conversations, I'm always hoping to, do it productively and plant seeds for uplift. Like, how do we improve things? How do we come up with solutions? How do we, improve? And even just affirming the truth to one another is very empowering, because I think there are a lot of things that people perceive inwardly, but they don't speak about. And when you hear someone else speak about it, you're like, wait, that person is saying something that I know to be true inside. So there's a great power to social consensus. And there's also a great power to, social ostracization, like vaccine agenda. That if you say to someone, I do not believe in vaccines, or I do not believe in mandated vaccines, then you might face social ostracization from other people who say, you're crazy, you're dangerous, don't be around my kids, I'm not going to allow you to go to my school, or you're not allowed to work in your workplace, or you have to wear a mask in your workplace. So there's a great deal of power to social consensus. Oh, I'm so sorry that my dog is barking. Someone is parked out front of my house. Let me close the window. Maybe she won't bark so much.
Okay.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Chiki's very insulted that someone, like, they wanted to park their car outside on the front street. Perfectly legal, on public street. She's very insulted. She's like, who is parking outside of our house? How could they do that?
That's incredible. For sure. Yeah, I think you have to be balanced about it, but the whole ostrich with the head stuck in the sand thing, I think, we need to kind of ease out of that a bit.
Yes, Many people say things just to get along, and I understand this. Like if you have a friend or a coworker that you might not say, oh, I am against the vaccine agenda, because they might then say, you're no longer my friend, or I can no longer work with you. And that's what circling back to one of the main themes of this, conversation that we're having here. How do we find allies, even if we might have differences of opinion? Like, if I have blonde hair and you have brown hair, how can we possibly work together? We're so very, very different. It can't happen. It can't happen. So finding the common ground of people who share your passions and share your beliefs in order to create a real community. That is what it is. That humans should be creating human community. Humans should not have to live within a social structure or a community context that is literally created by external authority figures, invasive aliens. And I'm a visitor. I'm not an invader. Really want to make that really clear. Like, I'm a respectful visitor. Like if you emigrated to France and you got a legal citizenship and you bought property and you worked and sent your children to school there, like you're part of France. I'm part of human culture. I came here from an otherworldly place, but I'm not like, oh, I just came here to like screw things up and then I'm gonna fly off in my spaceship one day. No, I didn't come here like that. I came here and have this body, and I use this body and resources on this world. Like this, everything about this world matters to me as much as it matters to the original occupants of here. So I'm a visitor, not a horrible invader.
I think most people that listen to you understand the, like for me personally, it's not so important somebody's background or history. It's more important, like you said, you can see on somebody's face what they're about, their intent. Like even Michael Haskell, the games he's playing, the intent that comes to those words, I don't need to know anything about him, but the intent says everything about that person, like what he's up to, etc., etc. And that's the whole entire
Do you know
story.
that guy just
Until he would say like, oh, I was playing around, or oh, I had a bad day, or something. Like just be somewhat human, or somewhat, benevolent, anything like a decency, right? And then it's like, okay, we can play, we can talk, etc. But I just don't think, and I do appreciate hearing your history and how you came in and things like that. But to me personally, like whoever you are, generally speaking, it shows through all of yourself, through your expressions, your face, tone of voice, everything. It doesn't matter, like people want to use anything so they can attack. That's what we've been used to,
Thank you very much for your recognition and friendship. First of all, that's why I have friendship and connection with you, because you see my true face. And also that guy, do you know that guy, Michael, he logged in on his wife's account to try to then further harass me here, so I just blocked his wife's account too. Like, some people, like, you have to really question, what is the motivation? They're not just casually, tangentially being like, oh, a video that I'm going to comment on. Like, they're shooting arrows specifically to try to disrupt. So, in earlier years when I was here on Earth, I might have been more accommodating or more whatever, less strident. Now I don't take any SHIT. I'm like, oh, I can see exactly who you are. Like, this ends now. Because, I used to have conversations with them and try to give them my energy and, some form of love. And I'm like, no. Because it's like having a really, really bad musician in the band. And they're like, and I'm like, oh, hey, can you just change your beat? Can you just change we're in the key of C. And they don't care. They don't care about what key we are playing in. So I kick them out of the band at this point, because they're not allowed to be here. But if they want to change, they can try to jam with us. That's it.
Yeah, and also, like, nothing is being accomplished by that. Like, I try, whenever somebody is sort of being detrimental, I try to see, is there a place for this here? Can something be gained or whatever? And, like, if it can't, then my general position with trolls is, like, if you're sort of intelligently harassing or there's some sort of play going on there, then, maybe there's something going on. But if it's literally just like a dog barking, like, there's like a frequency of, like, they don't like it for whatever reason, so they're barking, then I'm like, yeah, like, give something, give a little bit at least,
You used the word frequency, and Belinda used it in her comment. She says they are a different frequency than us. I think that's a perfect estimation of this. Like if your guitar is perfectly tuned and someone else comes into the band and their guitar isn't in tune at all and they're amplified and they're playing loud heavy metal and an out of tune guitar, you're like, you know something? That music is on a different frequency. And I think that that is what this person who, you know, is tried to disrupt here, and many others are an example of that. It's like some people try to eat healthy for their body. Some people are trying to do what is good to be alive. And some people aren't. They're like openly, you know, McNugget eating, you know, whatever, the heroin eating, whatever, you know, like they don't care. They're in self-destruction. So there's different people are going in different directions, and we have to allow that. Yeah, Laura's making a very good point, like jazz. So in order to jazz, oh, thank you, Belinda, I love you too. You know, I want you guys to know when people say in words, I love you, or in words, I love you, it's a real food. That is a frequency, that is a vibration, and I feel it, and I receive it as like a nourishment, and then I send some back. And this, when I say that to people all the time in the comments and whatever, it's real. And that, I think, is one of the things that's hugely effective. Like we have all of this, like, you know, I'm saying, how can we work together? How do we find alliances? How do we find a common ground? Love is a big part of that, because through real love, I'm not talking about romantic partnership. I'm talking about real love. Like I can love a cactus. I can love, you know, tomato plant. That I accept you. I accept who you are, and I can really connect with you. You can be different than me, and I accept you in all of your differences. I don't require that everybody has the same exact hairstyle as me or wears the same exact clothing as me for me to find common ground, have a level of connection. That's what real love is.
Right. We don't want everybody looking the same anyway. Like nobody wants that. It's about allowing the diversity without having to attack each other for looking different. Like that's the whole Rick and Morty thing. They're making fun of like what race war is. Like at one episode, Morty's talking to his sister. He's like, "Oh, you've never seen a race war before, ha ha." But somehow, still, when you know us here on Earth, we're like, yeah, you know, the terrorists and those brown people over there, and somehow that's still like a thing here that you know people need to work through in order to like. You know, it's manufactured for the most part. It's not like, yeah, this huge, massive group of people is really upset about the color of these people's skin, or they're really super scared that this country is about to come nuke them. Like, you start automatically seeing that. No, it's just something different. We may not know exactly what it is, but it's not that. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely. The way that governments portray their populace is very different than the way that we would interact on an actual individual human level. And so we have this amazing social network system. If it weren't so censored and so distorted and so algorithmically controlled, it would be an amazing way for everyone of very different, you know, diverse international groups to be able to finally talk to one another. So like we in the United States and English-speaking world should be able to connect on social media to everyone that's in China and the non-English-speaking, you know, area of the world over there. And we literally have a different internet system, and the things are not translated. That's intentional. Like there's literally two, you know, different groups on the planet, more than two, but we are not able to effectively connect with each other. But we could basically, if like whatever, on Facebook I have Russian friends. You know, I don't know them that well. I haven't visited their houses or whatever, but I'm connected to people in Russia, and that means that I'm not like thinking, oh, you Ruskies, I don't trust you because you're, you know, commies over there. No, I'm kind of like, oh, that's my friend Igor. He lives in Russia. We have conversations all the time. It breaks down those preconceptions that are created by our governments, who those governments are not human. They are non-human entities, and they tell us stories to make us hate and fear one another when we could work together instead. So let me just say this on the level of international government. International government is a ruse, like a front. Like if there's a business that's a front, you know, there's one of those dusty bodegas and there's people going in and out, but no one ever buys anything. And you're like, how can that store still be in business? And it's because they're like a front for drugs or prostitution. International government is a front. And what they're fronting for is not merely drugs or prostitution. It's what is being defined as human trafficking. It's the buying and selling of human life force energy, human bodies, human body parts, human sexuality, and human life force, which is not a physical substance called adrenochrome. It's a vibration. They eat vibration. So those governments are a front. They do not make their money by doing petroleum sales or arms deals or selling uranium. that's like the dusty magazines in the front room of the bodega where they say, oh, we're actually selling magazines. They ain't selling magazines. They're selling humans. They're selling human body parts. They're selling human souls. So people who know about birth certificates and corporate corporatization of you in order to be sold as a commodity, they're understanding that.
Well, we had
Nico's asking
thing, right? That people were parading in San Francisco about the Falun Gong, body harvesting, organ harvesting thing. There were actual Chinese people in San Francisco holding signs, and you go look it up and you see, people have been harvested for body parts, which are then sold for profit or whatever.
You totally got it, man. So Falun Gong, for anyone who doesn't know, this was a peaceful, or might still be, a peaceful meditation sect that was active in China. And it was severely suppressed by the Chinese government. The practitioners were arrested and put into these type of prison camps. And if any of you have seen that exhibit, that is kind of like freeze-dried people that have been flayed. They don't have their skin on them, so they just look like a muscle. They might be posed. They might look like they're shooting a basket. It's like a semi-scientific, but also kind of creepy, like kind of Nazi kind of Dr. Mengele, but scientific display of what musculature looks like. So there's one that is a woman that has a baby inside of her. So a actual human female had to die who was pregnant in order to be made into this freeze-dried thing, monstrosity. And when research was done about where this came from, it was a prisoner in China. It was one of the Falun Gong practitioners. So a lot of those bodies that you're seeing encased in plastic with no skin on them came from the Falun Gong prisoners from that regime of suppression. So that's just one way, the overt way in which you will see their bodies being sold. Their body parts are sold in other ways too. It's very sad, very it's dark stuff. Everybody like hug a dog. It's dark stuff. You need a hug. You need to feel better. You need to feel better. Seriously, don't go hug Cheeky.
They have what's called the Great Firewall, right? As far as the internet suppression thing, I had a Chinese kid in my car, in my rideshare thing, I don't know, a month or two ago. His parents live there. He had just come back, and he was telling me, they're afraid to talk about the situation, the government situation, the suppression. They're afraid to talk about it in their own house to him, behind closed doors, right? That's how scared, that's how suppressive the system is. He's saying they have 2 million people in prison, basically, for speaking out against the government, and it's indefinite terms, and there's no sort of, what we call here the justice system, even though here is tainted as well, but I'm sure there it's probably worse, but people here don't know what's actually going on over there.
Completely. There's a lockdown on information coming out of there. You're correct. There is a internet firewall, and Google actually supports it. Google, if it ever was a force for freedom, it is now a total force for supporting totalitarian regimes. And yeah, the idea that they can't speak openly in their own home. Guess what? Incidental collection. All of your phones, smart TVs, tablets, computers, it is all recording and surveilling you, even if you have it off, even if the switch is off. It is all being, listened to. So it's the total surveillance state. In China, it is just more obvious. It also exists here in our own country. Let me now talk about this surveillance supercomputer called the Hammer. The Hammer, like a hammer that you hit. Also the Hammer, HAMR. So this is as I said, surveillance supercomputer. All of the information that is collected through what is called incidental collection. That means they didn't actually say, I have a warrant to surveil Gary. Gary's an evil mobster, so I'm going to go to a judge and say, hey, judge, I want to tap Gary's phone and find out about all of his evil mob connections. They'd be like, yes, we will allow you to tap Gary's phone. This is not incidental collection. Incidental collection is when Gary is just talking to his friend or around his friend, and the computer hears what he says. If he says, let's go get all of those big, giant guns from my mobster friends, and it gets recorded in the database. And then there's an algorithm that goes to the database and might look for a keyword like big giant guns. And then if we're in this video will come up, and any other thing, a communication in any digital sense where you used that phrase. And then they'll say, oh, we know that this guy's doing this. Now let's get a warrant on him. Now let's bring something to a judge. Let's do a parallel construction. which is a way of saying, we're going to prosecute this person, but we can't tell the court how we actually found they are guilty. That is literally what happened to President Trump. Regardless of what you feel about your politics and whether you support Trump and his policies, this is a complete totalitarian, nightmarish disaster. The idea that an incoming potential presidential candidate was surveilled on that level, and that information that was collected was then used to try to sabotage or torpedo his administration is hugely disturbing. Again, just because you might not like him, just because you might have emotional distaste of his appearance, his voice, his hairstyle, his skin color, or who he is as a person, does not mean that it is a good thing that, there's this deep state data collection, and all of that is being used against you and me too. That I want you to know that you're not safe. The FBI can go up to you and say, oh, we have this, somebody heard you doing something illegal on the phone 10 years ago, and if you don't do blah, 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 we're then gonna make you go to jail. This is what they do all the time. This is a normal, so this is, again, so you can investigate this if you want to. I also have plenty of links to share. And the reason why I say this over and over and over is because the information is suppressed, and if this information were to come out, it would literally torpedo the entire international government that is a front for the buying and selling of humans. And there's people that actually have this information available to them, like Kim.com. Kim.com is a complete caricature of a supervillain. He's like big, ugly, horrible person, but he's like surrounding himself with children, petting a baby lamb. He's got all this information that he could let out, that he could have let out 2 years ago, that would have confirmed all of this to everyone. He doesn't. He sits on it. Literally, I think that he has it like on a thumb drive up his ass, and that he does not let this information come out, and it would literally topple the United States government, the UK, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, all of the beings that are called supposed allies. We no longer allies.
You're not a fan of him as a person?
I'm not a fan of him as a person because I feel that he lacks personal integrity, that he has this information that he could have let out in order to literally transform our entire world and end slavery for all of us. And instead, he held that information secret because he's trying to get out of his own court case, that he is facing a copyright issue with the United States government and is facing extradition. So he's trying to use the information that he has as a bargaining tool instead of effectively releasing it to the world, which would topple the entire present government structure. He is not a hero. He's the opposite. He's like a cowardly villain. I'm saying that. It's here on camera. Anybody can say tell Kim.com Aurora says he's a cowardly villain.
Likely, if he's going to topple governments, then they might have some slight influence in whether or not he releases that, right?
Well, I'm sure that he's threatened. It doesn't matter. That's why he's cowardly. If you're heroic, you do something, even if they say, oh, well, I'll do blah, blah, blah to you. He's busy trying to protect his incredible wealth. He's not trying to do anything that is helpful to humanity. They'd be like, oh, we'll take away your money. They'd be like, oh, I won't say anything about this. Literally, he could hire extensive security to be able to protect his family. Like, oh, my family. Hire some freaking security guards and let this information come out. But he's just trying to jockey for position in the new regime. This is what everybody has to understand. And I see there's lots of comments. I'll get comments. There's going to be a new regime. This is big. Let's talk about this on this broadcast. A lot of people think, oh, the new regime is going to be run by Satanist Luciferians, and that if you are, evil and you serve them, that then you'll get a cushy job, all right? Some people think, no, the new regime is going to be clank, metal using benevolent extraterrestrials, Pleiadians, Arcturians, brand name extraterrestrials, and that if you kiss their ass, that then you'll get a sweet cushy gig in the new regime. And some people think that it will be like a Christ or Roman Jesus, that only if you kiss Jesus' ass, that then you will get a sweet cushy gig in the new regime. And what I believe, and what I'm trying to tell other people, is that the way you get a sweet cushy gig in the new regime is actually run by divinity, run by like real love, real consciousness, real non-technological, the stellar consciousness. The sun and the stars, these are like way more powerful than any clank metal stuff. That's who runs the new regime. So if you want to kiss ass to like the sun, kiss a photon's ass. Ingratiate yourself to some photon. Because that's who is going to be this.
Yeah, go be a tree hugger for a day, like actually hug a tree for a day and see how it feels.
I want you guys to know I totally hug trees and I kiss them too. No tongue, but I kiss them. I go to a local park and people are doing this, and I wear rainbow clothes and I, kiss trees. Like who even knows? Someone asked a really good question up here. Gary, can I rewind? And that's why I'm scrolling and speak to this. It's from Nico. Nico says, Aurora, can you speak about out-of-body experiences? Is it dangerous? So thank you for that question. Here's what I have to say. So out-of-body experiences, this is about getting into your astral form. And your astral form is somewhere between the physical dense form, like we have a physical dense body, and then see what I've got behind me? This is your abstract body, which is totally, does not have a face, does not have 2 arms and 2 legs. This is abstraction. Your astral form is a mentally created body that is somewhere between these 2 levels of experience. And the challenge is that the astral plane, or the plane of pure mentality, is corrupt. It's been filled with these horrible occupiers of the interstices, evil demons, turds who refuse to flush for a very long amount of time. So if you do not know how to protect yourself and navigate that world effectively, and you go out of body, then it's essentially you're like jumping into the ocean that's full of giant sharks and leviathans, and you're a little tiny minnow, and you have no idea about how to swim around or what to do. So before anybody tries to do any kind of out-of-body experience, please work on practicing your Merkaba or your individual shielding, envisionment. Work on learning how to navigate. What's the map of reality? How do you know where you're going? And don't just go to bad neighborhoods. Like if I give you a car and a bunch of car keys, be like, okay, wear your seatbelt. Make sure you have enough gas. Make sure that you use your turn signals, and you use don't crash into things. And also, where are you going? Are you going to drive to like Times Square in the middle of the night? It's all like hookers and pimps and chuds. Like, don't go there. It's not a good place. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm going to go out of my body, and I'm going to like go to the worst neighborhoods of the astral realms where you will meet imps and chuds, and like that's not good. So you got to find like where's the good place to go in the astral realm and do things in a much better way. So yeah, Merkaba for personal protection, learning more about the map time and how to drive your car, and then eventually interdimensional traveling, but like as a empowered, informed individual, not as like a very vulnerable tiny minnow in the world. And we can swim like dolphins in a pod. You don't have to just go out there as a lone individual. You can go with a group, and then you're a lot safer.
Mm-hmm. Under the bushes.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm reading what Isaiah is saying. Isaiah says, this happened years ago under the bushes. So I think he's not talking about shrubbery. I think he's talking about bush 1 and 2. That they have a computer that attacks people. Absolutely. So yeah, you guys need to know that the intelligence agencies in our United States and all over, they use what would be called psychic weaponry to attack people all the time. Yes, they use synthetic telepathy or augmented psychic abilities to fuck with people, to reach into your mind, either to cause biological damage, like imagine microwaving someone's brain so it kills their brain cells or causes a stroke or an aneurysm or something like that, or causes dementia, or even just intrusive thoughts, like you can't think your own thoughts because something else is constantly coming inside of there, or controlling your trajectory, like if some synthetic intelligence agent says, I'm the voice of God, listen to me, take your car and drive it into a bunch of pedestrians and kill them all, like this also happens, and there have been several cases. There was one guy that was on a flight from Alaska to, I think, Florida, somewhere in Florida, I want to say Miami, and he said he went to the FBI before he got on that plane, and he flew with his gun. He went and he said, the CIA is beaming mind control into my mind and telling me to take a gun and shoot people. He actually went to the FBI and confessed that. Then he got on a plane from Alaska and flew to Florida with his gun in his carry-on and tried to shoot a bunch of people in the airport in Florida. So this is like, they make false flags, they make patsies, they program them like little Nintendo robots. Boop, 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 boop. Now I'm gonna make my robot go and take his gun and shoot people up. They do that shit and work.
Yeah. That's something most people don't want to even consider as a possibility.
I know. I mean, I talk about a lot of things that people would rather stick their ears in their not listen to.
No, I can't hear. Like that. Right?
Good God, yes. I get that. I get that a lot, actually. I'm not insulted. I don't take it personally.
Yeah. Hey, Aurora, I think I gotta wrap this up pretty soon. I don't know how long we've been going, but it's probably...
No, it's good to wrap it up, because also the light is perfect in my studio, and I want to do some painting. Do you guys want to see what I'm working on with my... over here? Let me show you. Let me tilt it up so that you can see it better, because otherwise, well, I don't know, maybe you can see it easier with this. Here, let me turn it around. Yeah, oh, you can see it pretty good. So this painting is an overlapping of 5 different octaves. So I've got giant circles that are 48 inches down to little tiny circles that are 1.11 inches. And each circle is assigned a color. And the circles themselves I draw with protractors and templates, but then I paint it all by hand with a little tiny, here I'll show you my little tiny squinchy brush. Here I use a little tiny paintbrush like this. So it's very much a meditative act, and it's also about, you know, achieving as much perfection as I can in the human form. Like, this isn't done by a computer, it's done by me. And you see pieces of masking tape up there. That's where I keep my place so that I know what I'm working on. You know, if I have to finish a line.
Would this be more, I guess, like detailed or than most paintings, or is that how they all start out?
It's different. I would call it the map without any additional bells or whistles. So some of these paintings back here, first I do the plain map, and then I do additional, you know, fun stuff on top of it. And this one, I'm like, first I actually did a drawing of it, and then this one is just the basic painting, and then actually this one that I'm working on over here, and here Cheeky just came in from outside, so we'll sit down here with her. This one, hi baby, this one over here that you see there's a sketch in the background is the next one. That's going to be that painting that I showed you on my work table with lots of bells and whistles and extra flourishes put on top of it. So I've got this all set up, like I know all the things that I'm going to do, but it takes a long time to do it. So that painting I might get to like in the next 6 months. It might just be after a little while, but I kind of know what's on the plate, what's coming up.
Nice. I'm gonna try my hand at painting. I think relatively soon here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna try it. We'll
I absolutely encourage you. I encourage everyone to explore their creativity and express themselves without judgment, without having to be a perfect, you know, ballerina or whatever. Like paint, sing, play your music, be your true self. I'm encouraging you to do that.
Yep. Well, I'm glad we got this thing to work finally, and maybe you can send me the and I can upload it.
That's what I will do. How about I put the video on Dropbox, and then I will send you the Dropbox link.
Yeah, I have Dropbox on the laptop.
Cool. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and thank you, Aurora.
Yes. Thank you for everyone who tuned in, and thank you for your wonderful comments, except for that guy who was mean and not nice.
Yeah. Maybe I'll come back and apologize tomorrow.
That would be, wouldn't that be so great? He'd be like, I had an epiphany, and I'm totally different now, and now I want to put a band.
Uh-huh.
That would be cool.
All right, Aurora. I'll see you next time, okay?
Have a great day, Gary. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.